The next speaker is somebody who I saw. I have a pictographic memory, so I always have to picture what I was seeing. I actually saw you with Phil Donahue. That's how long ago that was. We're upstairs and we were talking, and she made some funny joke at me being a pretty boy, which is very funny to me because I have been a scientist my life, and I spent my energy on inventing and designing, and I think a tux really does work. And I said, I think I'm a little older than you realize, and we're only a year apart. And so it was kind of fun just to find out. It's like, okay, we're in a similar range. But yes, Phil Donahue. And what I loved, and I remember this perfectly, you come on and they set you up to appear to be a bimbo. And you could see Phil didn't even completely understand what he was in for. Because Phil, he's very rational, and he walked up, and Phil, I think I can almost do Phil, I don't know, even anybody, raise your hand if you know who Phil Donahue is. Okay, good. Phil was very serious, side head covered, and he'd walk over like this, talk a very deep voice, and he'd, so tell me what you think of this. And he would just give you a question. And so he was very, very, very serious. Right, he'd get you to lean in, the whole thing. And he's like, this is a person who, and he describes things as if he's confused by what they do for a living. They have sex for a living. And you say that to the camera for a moment, get it very dramatic, and he wants to bring it, and so he tries to position it as if it's going to be tawdry and so forth. And then Nina begins talking. And it just shocked everyone. Everyone went completely silent because when she spoke, it wasn't about sex. It was about being human. It was about how this is done, how natural this is. And no one had ever said this on television. This was amazing. And I'm watching this thinking, this is a woman that is incredibly beautiful. She's in this industry, and she's brilliant. That was my first introduction to you. And then, Anal Space Aliens number 67. So I wish to give the mic over to Nina, and I'm going to be listening to a great deal of this as well. Please give her a round of applause.
15 minutes? 15 minutes. Well, with an introduction like that, how can I go wrong? So I only have 15 minutes to talk about sexual integrity. And that's a good practice for me because normally I can expand my words to fit any length of time, but contracting them to fit a shorter length of time. So to be integral, to be at one with oneself, it starts with one's body. And people have often said, my father, why sex? Why not the violin? And for me, as a queer person, as a non-monogamous, bisexual, exhibitionistic, voyeuristic, pick a label person, sex has been my practice to bring me into my body. You can use spirituality, you can use meditation, you can use sports, you can use music, you can use anything to which you give your undivided attention for enough years, you'll come to your own understanding of yourself. I pick sex also because we live in our bodies, and our bodies always live in the present moment. Our minds take us forward and backward and cause us all kinds of grief and get us into all kinds of problems. And our bodies are always stuck here presently in the moment. If we're not paying attention to them, we walk into front of buses. We cut our hands with knives. We enter into relationships that are unhealthful for us and cause damage. So anything that brings us presently into our bodies and centers us is a positive practice. I have a sex-based practice because I'm a sex-based person. My parents are a religious-based people, and they did Zen meditation for 40 plus years. They're still doing it. That brings them into their present awareness. I like sex because first you have to breathe, and the way we come into present awareness and into our bodies in the present moment is conscious breathing. 2 of those, and you're right back wherever you're at. Now, that can be a scary place for a lot of people, especially when it comes to sex. But what I like about sexuality as the vehicle by which I keep integrity, and the sex is the vehicle, it's the gas, it's the road, and it's the destination. Because the destination, when we do our sexuality in a conscious, aware manner, it brings us to our best place. So what we fear becomes presently aware to us when we pay attention in sex to what scares us, what makes us breathe more shallowly, what makes our breastbone vibrate with tension and terror. And so by exposing ourselves to sexual experiences that are just scary enough to make us awake, but not so scary that we're going to go into panic, but not so boring that we stay asleep, we can chart our own course toward, for lack of a better word, enlightenment, centeredness, wholeness, healthfulness. And so after 30 years of being in this porn business, what really worked for me, why porn? Because I got to have a lot of sexual activity without having to pretend it was in a relationship, or it was for love, or it was because I needed you to take care of me. For me, sex was my laboratory. Pornography was my laboratory, and I was paid to do my experiments, and I had a reliable stream of subjects for what I wanted to do. And it really works, because when we are at peace with our sexual natures, we no longer fear other people's judgments, nor do we need to judge other people. We are centered. We don't have to expend that psychic energy on, oh my gosh, that skanky bitch, or oh my goodness, they think I'm a skanky bitch. That when we allow that energy to move us, we are getting off our center. So how do you get back to center? You breathe 2-3 times, or 40 minutes on a cushion, or 10 minutes with a gong, whatever. And you keep vowing to treat yourself well. You keep vowing, you know what, I'm going to pick future partners in a more healthful manner. I'm going to learn to speak up for what it is I want, because I want to walk around feeling centered and not feeling all uptight. I wouldn't go back to being 20 again if you paid me, because I was crazy. Only if I could know then what I know now. If I could go back to 20 and know then what I know now, I would be extremely rich and powerful, because I wasted a lot of years of my life not being centered, living in integrity, for lack of a better word. So I'm a sex worker. I'm a kinky person. How can I have integrity and still do these jobs? Because I only do them with people who share my values. So I talk about living in our values. My values happen to include open relationships, non-monogamy, kinky sex, etc. But it doesn't have to be that. It means I recognize what my values are, I recognize what my desires are, and I will resolve the tensions between my desires and my values. And I can either put down the desire or not seek to act it out. I can change my values or expand my value system to include the behavior that I want, or I can just make my peace with it. And that's what we do with everything. We have the thesis, the desire, the antithesis, the fear, the two fight, and you come up with a synthesis, which is a new way of being or a new way of acting in the world. And for me, sex has been that thing. Other people, it might be art, it might be music, it might be politics. Anything that challenges us to keep coming back to what our authentic self is useful in this way. For me, it happened to be sex. And I like sex for this because it's portable, it's universal, and every person with a body can do this. Why? How? Because just by placing your hand on your crotch and breathing 3 or 4 times, you become presently aware. And you can do this over and over and over again, no matter how crazy you may get. Just metaphorically or for real, placing your hand on your vulva or your penis and just breathing a couple times, you come right back into yourself. So it's always present and available to you whenever you want to work on it. A minute here, an hour there, however you want. So for me, sex has been an incredible, useful thing for this particular path, because it goes with you everywhere. You always have your body with you. And whenever you want to get back into it, all you have to do is breathe a couple times. You can do it on this train, on the plane, in the middle of the 110 freeway at 2 miles an hour. And so for me, the talk was, how can I be in integrity after 30 years in the sex business, is I've picked my job correctly. I really love what I do. I love getting my hands on new people. I love helping other people go, oh my gosh, that's how it works. That's how easy it is. Fantastic. And it has been transformative for me as a human being. And I certainly have come into my power over the last 30 years in this business. Not because certainly having a lot of sex gives you confidence, but more importantly, having a lot of sex in the role of teacher really lets me see how universal the desire is for people to feel okay in their bodies. It's why we have sex geeks.